Wall walks are probably one of the first ways that people start to get upside down and work towards handstands in gyms. But quite often, I find using this exercise can make your handstands worse. And this is why. So, we're going to look at some examples today to show you why, yes, we should be doing wall walks because they are great to get you feeling comfortable with going upside down, and they feel like quite a safe and also are a really nice scalable way to be able to work towards being able to do a freestanding handstand. They also build strength, but we need to make sure that we are training them correctly in order to build all of these things, which I often see people training them incorrectly and then ending up getting really frustrated because their handstand work hasn't improved or they're still a bit scared to do handstands. And it's because they've been training wall walks incorrectly. So quite often I see many different faults with these wall walks. There's, from the get-go, you can see here on this example that there's a big lack of hollow positioning. So just because we can rely on the wall, it then kind of tricks us into thinking that we don't necessarily need to be in the correct position or the same position that we think that we need for a handstand hold. So we see this arching in the back here, or more of a neutral spine where we have a loss of tension in the midline, and then we can see already how this impacts our shape in our body. Again, we've got this more arched back position, and then also we see a reflection in how this affects our shoulders as well. You can see here that my shoulders are away from my ears. I've got a big old banana back, and these are both things that are not desirable for a handstand hold or a handstand walk at all. We see a lot of this in gyms. I see a lot of people do this, and I think sometimes with wall walks especially, it can feel harder and slower to actually do them in the correct positions, but you have to know that they're going to pay off in the long run. And if you can train the correct positions, then in the long run you are going to be better at wall walks. You're going to be able to get more capacity, but also you're going to be able to progress through the movements much easier. It's going to help you with handstand push-ups because you'll have better shoulder strength and ability to push through your shoulders. It's going to help you with your handstand holds because your positioning is going to be correct. And then also it's going to help with your handstand walks as well, because again, we're pushing through your shoulders rather than your triceps, and we're able to control your body through the hollow position rather than sinking into the wall here. See how my hips are just sinking towards the wall, and I'm still almost in this plank position with my shoulders here. Whereas what we really want to see is to be pushing tall, and then it can feel like you just want to collapse out of your wall walk. And what happens when we get to this highest point, whether we can go to the RX line or not, what I see is people using like a wall walk and then a hold against the wall, which in theory is a great practice to do if you're trying to get a freestanding handstand hold. But we see these hips crashing towards the wall, or thighs touching the wall, maybe your chest as well pulling towards the wall. So we see again this banana position, which yes, you might be able to hold against the wall for quite some time, but this causes other compensations and issues that then arise later when we're trying to hold a freestanding hold, and then just completely halts your progress. So let's just go through some of these. We can see big arch in the back, which isn't ideal because it's hard. It's a hard position to hold. You might be able to hold it for some time, but it's hard to hold for any length of time, and then it doesn't give you much control over what you're doing with your legs, well, especially when we're thinking about freestanding. All of our weight, because we're arching our back and dropping our hips towards the wall, all our weight is sitting back towards the wall, which makes your body feel very heavy. And thinking about gymnastics, handstands, we are trying to fight against gravity here. Gravity is wanting to pull you back against the wall, which is why this feels like the natural position to be in. And also, like, sometimes it feels like the easier option. Sometimes holding the incorrect position feels like the easier option, because then we don't have to fight against gravity. I can just lean against the wall and hold this all day, because then I'm not fighting against anything. And our brains like to find the easy way. We're trying to seek out the most comfortable way to perform a movement. And if that means not fighting or having to fight against gravity, then automatically your body is going to go for leaning up against the wall, which you can see here. If I'm leaning up against the wall, imagine if I was just to take that wall away now, I am just going to plummet straight back down towards the ground. Now, holding this position is just training you and your brain to, whenever you're doing handstands, your brain is going to think, oh, I'm doing a handstand, I need to find this position because this is the position that I always hold up against the wall when I do my wall walks. This then builds bad habits. It builds positions that are incorrect. So then when you do hold the correct position, it feels much harder and it feels wrong. Which is why I say that wall walks could be harming your handstand progress. It's not that we shouldn't use wall walks at all, it's that we should use them correctly. And the last thing I want to touch upon that is often incorrect about wall walks is the shoulder angle. So again, we are trying to lean back against the wall because that feels like the easier thing to do. And the hard thing to do here is to push against the floor. We want to push up tall, which is difficult to do if our body is leaning up against the wall anyway. But also our body is going to lean against the wall because we're not pushing through our shoulders. So we've got this whole cycle of different compensations happening. We can see a big gap between my shoulders and my ears, which then means that I've got a shoulder angle and I'm struggling to push through and actually use my shoulders in this movement at all, which we can also end up sometimes seeing bent arms in these positions. My arms are staying relatively straight here, but quite often I see people pushing through their triceps and bending their arms to walk up the wall rather than being able to move through their shoulders to be able to shimmy up the wall here. So how do we actually use a wall walk effectively? Not only to get good at wall walks, but to have that crossover effect into our freestanding handstand work. And also remember that working on the correct positions upside down is going to help all of your gymnastics work. If you get good at finding the hollow position upside down, you're going to get really good at finding it when you need to be the right way up if you're on the rig or doing a different gymnastics element. So here are the things and the visuals to go with it of what we actually want to look for in a wall walk to support your handstand progress. Notice how when I push off the floor here, immediately I go into this position where I am pulling my belly button up and in. I like to describe this action as if, imagine someone wants to like poke you in the belly button. We want to pull away from it. So we're pulling up and in through our belly button. My tailbone is also tucked in and I'm pulling my ribs in as well. So my whole torso is pulling in towards each other. And you can see the difference here. My back is rounded rather than being arched. And then from here, that is the position I then try and hold throughout my whole wall walk. See how now my back is flatter, it is not arched anymore. So it doesn't need to stay really, really rounded the whole time because that is not what we are looking for necessarily when we are thinking about freestanding handstands. But we don't want to have an arch in the back. We want to have a nice flat back because that's going to help us stack our hips over our shoulders, over our knuckles when we are thinking about any kind of handstand work. So my back is nice and flat because I'm pulling my belly button in, my ribs in and my tailbone in all towards each other. The other thing that you will notice that is different here is you cannot actually even see my ears at all anymore. Remember in the last video how you could very clearly see my ears when I was walking up the wall and also when I got to the top position as well. So you can see here that the only time you can see my ears is when I'm moving my hand back, but then I go to push the tool through my shoulder and you can't see my ear again. So rather than having this angle at the shoulder where it's in more of like a plank-like looking position, we now have a straight line and I'm still holding onto this straight back position as I walk my feet up the wall. And having my shoulders covering my ears means that I can push the floor away and I am fighting against gravity. The last thing that you'll see in this top position here is that I'm pushing tall through my shoulders. I've got this flat back position. It looks like my thighs are resting against the wall because of my tracksuit bottoms, but I am pulling my thighs, my belly button and my chest. They are not leaning up and against the wall at all. Like I said, this top position, which sometimes we walk up to and hold because we're trying to practice and get better at handstands, if we're holding it incorrectly, it's probably going to feel easier. So this position will feel hard. to find and hold to begin with. But once you get used to it, you can start building on your time and getting better at it over time. The other thing we can do is only go as far as we feel comfortable and able to be able to hold this position. Now, it is better to hold this position here, only a couple of steps in, or perhaps halfway up the wall, than it is to think, but I can go RX and I can go all the way up towards the wall, hold a position that is reinforcing poor shaping and reinforcing bad habits. It's much better to hold a position like this correctly. You're going to see much more progression, faster progression, and continued progression if you are able to hold the correct shape like this. And again, you'll notice, even though I'm much further away from the wall, I have a flat back because I've got my hollow body position. I'm pulling my belly button in and away from the wall. I'm pushing tall through my shoulders, and the way that I am able to be able to push tall through my shoulders is because I'm creating a straight line there. And if you're struggling with mobility on this, I do have another video that's going to help you out with this. And just know that if you're training the correct position and trying as hard as you can, even though your shoulders might not make a straight line yet, intentionally practicing and working towards this is going to be the thing that gets you that nice straight shoulder angle so that you can push more through your shoulders. So I want to finish up by saying, please don't stop doing wall walks. They are a great drill and very accessible. You don't need any equipment for them, but please make sure you are practicing them intentionally and that you are practicing them correctly. The main points to remember are straight line through the shoulders, so you can push through them and push the floor away as you move towards the wall. Keep your belly button in, so you've got your hollow position, creating that flat back, which we want for all of our handstand work. And lastly, make sure that you are not leaning up against the wall. Our toes should only be resting gently against the wall, and it's that push through the shoulders that enables us to move and also hold the handstand and maintain that shape when we get up to the top of our wall walk, not just leaning up against the wall and having a chill out at the top there.